30% of autism neuroimaging studies include female participants. They often hide their traits so well, a behavioral called masking. But many diagnostic systems still ignore this, leaving big gender gaps in treatment.
I was very interested in what made brains different.
No such thing as a male brain or a female brain.
Biological males had different brains from biological females. Females and males have complementary skills, empathic and nurturing and caring than politically astute, etc. So they're more likely to be leaders in the world. Why there are fewer women in science.
Welcome to Khan Clinics, your dedicated space for exploring the vital connections that shape your well-being. Here we dive into everything from achieving peak physical fitness by mastering sustainable weight management to optimizing your diet for a vibrant life. We're passionate about uncovering the power interplay between your mental and physical health, offering you insightful strategies to nurture both. Join us as we unlock the secrets to embark on your self-confidence and your inspiration by interviewing the top-rated personalities, not from only the US, but around the world. At Khan Clinics, our commitment is to bring you evidence-based information that inspires you to confidently control your health journey and live your life to the absolute fullness. I'm your host, Amir Khan. Let's get ready to unlock the true potential of being a human with the most amazing people around us. We're living in a time when historical myths about male and female brains still overshadow brain science. Despite overwhelming evidence that brains are shaped more by culture and experience than biology. Even as progress is made, mental health inequities persists, particularly for women and marginalized groups. A 2024 meta-review in PubMed found that only 30% of autism neuroimaging studies include female participants, perpetuating misdiagnosis in girls and leading to delayed support for them. A 2024 another study that autism women brains connect in unique ways when it is at rest. But there's the twist. They often hide their traits so well, a behavioral called masking, that it delays their diagnosis even more. This suggests something called the female protective effect, meaning women might naturally compensate in ways that make autism harder to spot. Another 2024 review showed that brain scans like MRI are now pretty good at spotting autism. But there's a problem. Most of the research has been based on men. So even with advanced technology, women often slip through the cracks because the tools weren't there designed keeping them in mind. A 2023 review found that real brain differences between men and women with schizophrenia, but many diagnostic systems still ignore this, leaving big gender gaps in treatment. These studies tell a stark truth. Our mental health system are only as balanced as the data and assumptions behind them. But today, we're in a conversation with someone who is actively rewriting that narrative. Welcome to another enlightening episode of Khan Clinics. I'm your host, Dr. Amir Khan, and today we're joined by a groundbreaking voice in neuroscience and gender research from England. She's not just challenging outdated ideas, she's rewriting the narrative around the brain, gender, and mental health. Professor Gina Rippon, a British neurobiologist and feminist. She's a professor of cognitive neuroimaging at the Aston Brain Center, Aston University, Birmingham. Dr. Rippon has also sat on the editorial board of International Journal of Psychopathology. In 2019, Dr. Rippon published her book, Gendered Brain, the new neuroscience that shatters the myth of the female brain and investigates the role of life experiences and biology in brain development. Dr. Rippon earned her PhD in physiological psychology and has since then focused on brain function on a lot of conditions. She has advanced brain imaging tools like EEG and MEG to explore both typical and atypical cognitive behaviors, including autism and developmental dyslexia. Dr. Gina Rippon, welcome to Khan Clinics.
Thank you very much for asking me.
Let's start by asking the first question, Dr. Rippon, and that generally pertains to your own experience that inspired you to work in a very unique field of mental health issues, and that is mental health in females. What made you to do that?
I think my research has always been based on finding differences in the brain. Early neuroscience research was focusing on trying to find common characteristics in everybody's brains. But I was very interested in what made brains different and also what the implications of those differences were for the brain's owners, if you like. So that drew me on a general level into differences between males and females, because when I was first researching, there was a very clear message that males and females had different brains, and that had all sorts of implications for their skills and abilities, and also for their mental health. So I had a kind of general interest in male-female differences. And alongside that, I was also researching into developmental conditions such as dyslexia and autism, which are not mental health conditions as such, but they are conditions where individuals experience the world differently from other people, and this can have implications for their behavior.
Thank you for explaining that. So let's go right into discussing female mental health issues. And I want to start with your book that argues that there is no such thing as a male brain or a female brain. And yet we know we've been brought up with this knowledge around us, is propagated a lot. What does modern neuroscience actually show us about the brain differences? Would you like to explain our audience?
Yeah, well, I think the key thing is to understand what is really meant, or what is understood by the terms male and female brain, and what they actually mean. The long-standing belief has been that right from the end of the 18th century was that biological males had different brains from biological females, and so there were the idea that there was a female brain and a male brain, and at that stage it was very much couched in terms of trying to explain why females were inferior. So obviously they had an inferior brain, so a lot of the early research was searching for that inferiority. We've moved on a bit since then, and the idea is that maybe females and males have complementary skills, and those arise from differences in their brains, so that, for example, women are supposed to be more empathic and nurturing and caring than men, and therefore are good at those kind of jobs like nursery nurses or primary school teachers, whereas men are much more rational, logical, and scientifically able, and therefore they're much more likely to go into those kind of professions which will lead to tremendous academic success, but they're also more powerful and politically astute, etc. So they're more likely to be leaders in the world than females. So that's the kind of belief that's underpinned a lot of today's even understanding of differences between boys and girls, why there are fewer women in science, why there are, is greater political representation in men than in females, than in women, etc. So the idea is that, right from the beginning, that somehow if you're a man, you had a different brain from a woman. And what current neuroscience is showing us that is absolutely a myth. Men and women, actually their behavior as well, aside from what we see, is much more similar. So men and women are much more similar than they are different. And this applies actually in particular to their brains. And there was a review done 2 years ago now, looking at about 30 years of brain imaging studies, looking for sex differences. And they said after 30 years, if you look at all the data, you look at the size of the differences, you look at the reliability of different studies finding the same differences, actually, and the title of the paper was Dump the Dimorphism. There really is no difference between the brains of men and the brains of women, or meaningful differences, apart from one issue that on average, and that's a key phrase, male brains are bigger than female brains. But that relates to the fact that males, on average, are bigger than females. And if you scale for those differences, any other differences in the brain disappear.
Excellent. Thank you for clarifying. What a remarkable journey we've just experienced together. The path to health isn't always straight, but it's always worth the effort. I hope today's conversation inspired you to take the next step in your wellness journey, armed with new knowledge and a fresh perspective. If today's episode left you inspired, share it with someone who need to hear this. Give us a thumbs up and your opinion. Keep exploring, keep evolving, and we'll see you in the next episode of Khan Clinics.